Okay. We all know what you're here for. Let's just do it. My least favorite books of 2021. We got 10 to talk about, so let's get to it. Hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. We are here to do it. We're going to do it. Now, let me just do a little disclaimer first. This video is in no way meant to be negative. I almost didn't want to do it, but this is more so for moi, so I can look back and know what my least favorite books were of 2021. Now, any book, I give it up to the author for putting it together. I have been a writer. I don't want to write, so I appreciate it all. Like I said, these are just the ones I did not enjoy the most in 2021. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Now I'm going to break this up into sections to make it a little easier for you. There will be timestamps below, but I'm going to do my sci-fi books first, then horror, then thriller. First up for sci-fi, this one I read in the month of January, and it was my first foray into the sci-fi genre. So of course I went with one that everyone's heard of, everybody talks about, and I'm speaking of The Martian by Andy Weir. Now, again, this is not like the worst book ever. I don't think many of these books on this list are, but it was one of my least favorites, and also because I read another one of his books that I preferred. So if you don't know, The Martian is about an astronaut named Mark Watney who goes into space with a team, a crew, what have you, and some things go wrong. They end up thinking he's dead and they leave, but he is very much alive and stranded on Mars, and he has to figure out how to survive and maybe how to get back home. Now, I had seen the movie, which I thoroughly enjoyed, so I had high hopes for the book. But for the book, it was too much science of the fiction for my taste. I just felt like it was just so much that I just was not grasping. Got a little boring. I ended up switching to the audiobook that was narrated by Will Wheaton, which made it much better. But yeah, it took me a while to get through it, even with the audiobook. I preferred the sections where he was trying to grow crops and food and whatnot. And then I also enjoyed the NASA team that were here on Earth. So I also felt like it was probably a little bit too long, even though it wasn't that long. But anyway, it just ended up being okay for me. I was just kind of like, all right. I mean, I got through it, so that's a plus. But like I said, overall, it was just, meh. Sorry, because I know a lot of people love it, but it didn't do all that for me. Let's move on. I am drinking some elderberry tea because, it's that time of year. We got to fight these germs and, keep me nice and warm and toasty. It did finally cool off where I live, so I'm so thankful for that. Let's move on. These next two were on Kindle, part of a series that they did. I'll put it here on the screen because I don't remember the name of them, but it's a bunch of novellas that are written by a bunch of famous sci-fi authors, and I got them for free with my Kindle Unlimited subscription. So I was like, you know what, I'll check these out. But yeah, I have not read anything else by these two authors, so I can't say if it's just this short form that I didn't enjoy, but yeah, these were not my favorites. The first one I didn't hate until the ending. I won't say I hated the ending, but I just, this one is called You Have Arrived at Your Destination. Now, the premise I was all here for. I was excited. It's basically in a world where couples that are having trouble with fertility can go to a clinic, but the thing is you can hand pick your child's life before you do the in vitro process. It is not just, hair color, eye color, all of that. You can see everything they're going to go through, what kind of job they're going to have, who they're going to marry, how many kids, how they're going to die, all of it. So we follow this character, don't remember his name, sorry, but it's a husband and wife, and the husband is going to the clinic because the wife had already been there and she picked like her top 3 candidates, I guess you would say, for the child she wants to move forward with in vitro. So he goes there to see, what their choices are so he can narrow it down and they can pick one. And this company, they have like a whole presentation. You watch the child's life on a projection, on the big screen. And, like I said, that was just so interesting to me. I loved that part of the book. Then the guy leaves the place, and this is where it took a turn for me. I didn't fully understand the ending. I went on Goodreads after and looked up people's explanations, and I thought I got it, but then different people said different things. And I was like, you know what? It don't need to be that deep. It doesn't need to be that difficult. I just wish the ending was better because I would have loved it, but it just brought it down for me. I don't want to be confused. I don't want to have to go look up stuff too much. So unfortunately, it's on the bottom of this list. Now, I really probably could have made this list like 4 or 5 books long, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with the bottom of my ratings on Goodreads, and we ended up with a good number. I was like, we'll just make it 10. So like I said, some of these were not the worst for me of the year. Most of these weren't, but I still just put them on here because, like I said, weren't the most enjoyable. I keep giving disclaimers because I don't like being negative. I'm sorry. Okay, this next one is The Last Conversation. Now, similar to You Have Arrived at Your Destination, I was confused at the end. But this one, I just wasn't even necessarily here for it all the way from the beginning. I did this one on audiobook because it was just like 2 hours, I think, and I was doing something, and I was like, I'll just play this while I'm doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I was along for the ride because it was more of a mystery. I'm sorry, I didn't explain. There's this guy who wakes up from a coma or what have you, and he has no idea where he is, what has happened, what's going on in the world. And he's having a conversation with this person, doctor, scientist, whatever, we're not sure. And they're trying to help him remember and talk about what's going on in the world. I don't want to say much because I don't want to give things away. You can read it for yourself. But like I said, I was here for the mystery of him trying to figure out what was going on. Like, I was really intrigued by that part of the story. But then when it started to get towards the end and you start getting some answers, I was like, what is going on here? And then the very end, I just was not. Once again, I was confused. Maybe it's just me. I went on Goodreads once again, looked to see what other people had to say. And I kind of got it, but then other people had different explanations, like the other one. So pretty much nobody knows. People just grasping at straws. I ain't got time for that. So bottom of the list you go. Moving on. Next up is my horror category. Surprisingly, it's like I have 4 here, the most of all of my sections, my genres. So I have just found that horror is just difficult for me. It is my favorite genre with movies in life, but with books, we're still trying to figure things out. I have loved more gothic horror this year, so I'm like, maybe that's my thing. I don't know. Like I said, we'll see. But let's get into the ones on this list. Okay, so this first one was one of the first books I heard of when I discovered Booktube and started trying to get into reading. And I was really looking forward to it because it is described as a Lovecraftian horror book. And at the time I was watching Lovecraft Country. So I was like, you know what? Cosmic horror type of thing. I think that's for me. But now I don't know. I'm speaking of The Ballad of Black Tom. Now, this one, it wasn't the worst. Like I said, none of these books are, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted to. All right, when we get to these more complicated storylines, sometimes I have to consult the synopsis, and I'm just going to read to you a snippet of what it says. It says, Charles hustles to put food on the table, keep the roof over his father's head. From Harlem to Flushing Meadows to Red Hook. When he delivers an occult tomb to a reclusive sorceress in the heart of Queens, he opens a door to a deeper realm of magic. So I was excited about this. I was like, oh yes, magic. And like I said, Lovecraftian stuff, but it takes place like in the 40s, I think, 30s to 40s to 50s. I don't fully remember. Charles is a black man, so there is a great deal of racism in this book, be forewarned. I knew there would be some, and I just didn't expect that to be so much of a storyline to the book. That part of it was more like just a fiction novel, and like I said, I wanted to get to the horror. And it took too long to get to the horror. I was getting kind of bored, but I kept reading. I did enjoy the writing style, but like I said, not enough was going on for me horror-wise. Then when the horror kicked in, that part was good, but it was like too little, too late. It came like damn near the end of the book. And like I said, I really enjoyed that part, but it just took too damn long to get there. So for me, it was just okay. I was just like, everybody rants and raves about this book. And I was like, I didn't get all of that. It didn't do it for me. So, and of course it wasn't scary. Hardly any horror books are. So let's move on. Okay. So I have another novella. This one is Invention of Ghosts by Gwendolyn Keast. I believe that's how you say her name. This one I found out about through the Bram Stoker Awards that were aired here on YouTube. Someone mentioned it in a video and I was like, oh, I want to check that out. And I just put it on while I was busy doing some stuff. And this book popped up for some reason. It caught my attention. They didn't say what it was about or anything. I just saw the cover and I was like, what's that? Looked it up. Synopsis sounded good, so I decided to check it out. And so basically, I thought this was a witchy, Ouija board, sorcery type of story. The synopsis says it's these two friends that mess around with, like I said, spirits and things and use a Ouija board. They get in contact with some things from the dark side and then consequences happen. So I was all here for it. But the writing in this book was very lyrical. That's the kind of thing you like. You would love it. I thought it was well written, but it was not scary one iota. There was barely any of the supernatural stuff that I was looking for. This was more a story of friendship. And once again, got to the ending and I was just like, I didn't get it, didn't like it. It just didn't do anything for me. This one would just be forgettable. I was just so disappointed because, like I said, I found this one on my own and it just didn't do it for me. So, like I said, I'm not sure if I would check out something else by this author. We'll see. But this one, Now, let me just also say, please don't let me deter you from reading any of these books on this list. You may hear something that I say and be like, oh, that sounds right up my alley. Please go check it out for yourself. I know certain people I watch, I know like my taste is the opposite from them. So if they say they don't like something, I probably will, and vice versa. So like I said, don't let me deter you. These are just my little humble opinions. So let's move on. All right, this next one. I actually included this in my cozy book recommendations video. I will link it here. But as for me, it was not the best. And I'm talking about The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And as we know, this book is beloved. People say in the horror community, it's like one of the books you must read, like this and Frankenstein and Dracula, which I have not read those yet either. But this one was just okay. Like, I really didn't get the hype. It was rather slow. Nothing scary, and I do mean nothing. Like, some of the scary stuff that happened in the book, I think I even missed it. But let me back up, tell you what it's about. It is about a group of people who goes to this house, Hill House, to see if it is indeed haunted. And there is a professor, and he invites the people to come along. And we mainly follow this one woman that I forgot how, I think she wrote to him to be included. I don't even fully remember, but she was a little weird. And that's why it was like, why do we have to be from her perspective the whole time? A lot of the other people were more interesting. There was like the heir to the house, and then another lady had like psychic abilities or something like that. I don't even remember. But like I said, anyone would have been more interesting than the main lady. I think her name was Eleanor. But it was cozy because it is very atmospheric. I guess this will be more gothic, but this kind of gothic, classic gothic, just, I don't know. This one just didn't do it for me. Like I said, it was a lot of them sitting around talking, you know, chit-chatting, like something would happen and then they would all come together and talk about it. And then the next day it'd be the same thing, and things escalated way too slowly for my taste. I mean, I guess just like I said, the writing just didn't grab me. And I know people love Shirley Jackson, but just didn't do it for me. Like I said, I got that she's a good writer, but it just, like I said, it was just okay for me and borderline more boring. I almost DNF'd it. I don't know what kept me going, but I did finish it, and yeah. Oh, I did like the ending though. That was good. I know some people don't. I like the ending. I just wish there was more of the action that came at the end earlier in the book. Seems to be a theme with these books so far. This last one, I'm sure you already knew was coming if you have been a viewer of my channel, because I've talked about this book enough. It's probably one of my least favorite of the year, but I am speaking of Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. Now, I was really looking forward to this book because I thought by the cover that you can see that we were going to get a killer mannequin story. And the synopsis says that it's a group of teenagers who find this mannequin, and they use this mannequin to play a prank on some of their other friends. And then the prank goes horribly wrong. That was what I knew. This is accurate, but like I said, by the cover, I thought I was getting something that I did not get. I won't spoil it because there's definitely death and murder and mayhem, but just not what I was looking for. So my problem with once I realized what was going on in the book, I just kept flipping pages like, I know this is not all this is about. And then I'd get to another chapter. I know this is not all this is about. And then I got to the end and I was like, that's what this was about? It's not what I signed up for. I don't know if I'm going to read another Stephen Graham Jones. I know one of his books I'm not interested in. Another one, I don't know. Probably it's going to take the right book. So far, all of his books that I know of, I'm not interested in. It was well written, just not what I was looking for. I did not sign up for it. So I was mad that I was hoodwinked and bamboozled. And I don't appreciate that. So let's move on. Okay. So we are on the thriller category, thriller mystery category, the last of my list. And I have 3 on this list. One really pains me, but I have to be honest. So let's just go ahead and get it out the way. And I'm speaking of Shade by Chad Nicholas. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you know that he wrote another book that I loved, Nightmare. That was his debut novel. I loved it. I got to participate in a live discussion with him and Steve from Steve Talks Books and stuff. I'll link it down below in case you want to check it out. But so, yeah, I love Chad Nicholas. He's a sweetheart. And during that live discussion, he told us that he was working on another book, a thriller book, and he told us it was going to be like a detective story. And so I was like, oh, okay, sign me up. Because, you know, at the time, I was like, I'm really looking for some more detective stories. Since then, I've decided, like, I don't know how much I want to read detective stories anymore. So by the time Shade came out, that was when I was like, I don't really want to read so many more detective stories, like dark stuff right now. I'd rather try to get into some more fantasy and read more sci-fi. But I had already told him in the live show that I was going to read the book, but I did check with him to make sure there were no trigger warnings in it that I don't like. He assured me that there weren't. So I was like, okay, for you, Chad, I'm going to do it. So basically, this one is hard to describe. So I'm just going to read you from a little bit of what it says in here about the book. The desperate hunt for a serial killer, an ex-soldier losing his grip on reality, and a victim who's not sure she's worth saving come together as past and present intertwine in this explosive psychological thriller that begs the question, can you stop a monster without becoming one? I will say this book was very action heavy. Like it was more like reading an action movie, and that's not really my thing. I don't really watch a lot of action movies. I used to in the past, but not necessarily right now. It is very military focused because like I said, we have a few ex-soldiers. So like I said, the PTSD thing is a major plot point of the story. But my main issue was that the action scenes just went on and on and on. Like they were just so descriptive. And I just, like I said, that's not what I was looking for. I didn't sign up for that. I really enjoyed more so following the 2 detectives, even though I said that's not really my preference, but I do have an appreciation for it. But I love the puzzle solving part. And I enjoyed them trying to find the serial killer. That part was a little dark because like I said, the girls keep getting younger and that's not my thing. I did find that more interesting. And then the ex-soldier that they're trying to save from being another victim, I really didn't care about her and I wasn't really into her story either. So I really just wish it was more just a book about the 2 detectives searching for the serial killer. But it has great reviews on Goodreads. Do not let me deter you. Like I said, Chad Nicholas is a great writer and I look for his next horror book. But as far as thrillers, this is just not my cup of tea yet. This is more like Jason Bourne, Jack Ryan type of thing, Jack Reacher. And like I said, that's just not really my thing. So if that's what you like, you will love it. Like I said, just wasn't for me. Sorry. Oh, that one hurt. Let's move on. Next up, we have a debut novel that I discovered on my own. I don't remember how I found it, but I did this one for the January New Year readathon, and it was a prompt that was to read a debut novel. So like I said, I found this one. It sounded interesting, and I'm speaking of No Bad Deed by Heather Chavez. This one is about a woman who is driving home and she sees a man and a woman having an altercation. It appears as though the man pushes the woman off over a cliff, so she jumps out the car to try to help her, and then things turn on her. That's why it's called No Bad Deed, because it's usually no good deed, you know? Anyway, but yeah, so afterwards, the guy tries to kill her and there's all kinds of things that go on. So I was like, oh, this sounds so good. I feel as though the bones of the story were there. It definitely had a good setup. I enjoyed the majority of the book, but I just felt like the author gave too many unnecessary descriptions of things that weren't necessary. Like You know, you walk into a room and it talks about how you put your coat down, you turned on the light, you know, put your boots down by the chair. We don't need all that. It's not necessary. And then there were just things in the book that were just unbelievable for me. She's supposed to just be a mom who's a veterinarian, I believe. And all of a sudden she has like these superhero powers that I was like, where is this coming from? She didn't learn to shoot a gun or anything like that. And all of a sudden, like I said, she can kick butt and have psychic abilities. It was just, like I said, just a little far-fetched because I love Stillhouse Lake. That one was a mom who can do some stuff, but she trained and did some research and all kinds of stuff. So it's a little more believable. This one just was not. And the ending I found a little bit predictable. But like I said, I enjoy the author's writing enough that I would see what else she does next. But this one for me was just okay. And I was rather disappointed because like I said, it had such a good concept and it just missed the mark. Let's move on. Okay. Last but not least, I'm about to get on one that I know so many of you love. I did not, and I did a whole review on it, so I'm not going to go too deep. But I'm talking about Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Now, if you don't know, this is about a father and a daughter who have two different accounts of something that happened in their past. The father is a writer, and he writes a book about living in this haunted house. And then the daughter gets older, and she starts thinking back to what happened, and she doesn't necessarily think the father is telling the truth from what she can remember. The house is, she's trying to sell it to get rid of it, so she goes to the house to oversee the renovations and etc. And things unfold from there. We have two different timelines. We go from the father's storyline in the past to the daughter in the present. I said in my review, I did not care for the daughter. I didn't like her POV. She was just grumpy. It's just not a likable character. So I did not enjoy reading from her perspective. I found it boring. So I actually switched to the audiobook. I think I was also having a hard time with keeping up with whose POV was whose. And so the audiobook definitely helped with that because there were two different narrators, a man and a woman. There's secrets and mysteries, and I just had to know where it was going to go. But I just was not that into it. And people kept saying this was one of the scariest books and all that. It wasn't scary. Not for me. I'm sorry. Not at all. I prefer Riley Sager to stick with the thrillers. I know some people like his little spooky-ish stuff, but this wasn't it for me. Lock Every Door I loved, and I guess that had more of the spooky vibes, but that one was way better for me. This one just didn't do it. I did like the ending when we found out twists and secrets were revealed, but I just wanted a little more of that sooner. And again, this book could have been shorter. It dragged for me. It was a chore to get through. And I just was disappointed because at that point I was a fan from Lock Every Door and this one just wasn't it for me. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So those were my least favorite books of 2021. Let me know in the comments if you agree with any of these picks or if you disagree and you loved a book that I didn't like. Let me know that too. I love to have conversations about the books that I'm reading because that's what we're here for, right? And if you don't have a comment, you can always just leave me an emoji to show me some love. And let's see. I guess we'll just go with the black heart because I feel, the black heart for having to talk about these books. In case you don't know, I always have lots of things in the description box below. I link books that I talk about. I also have ways that you can support my channel, which include you can donate to me on Ko-fi. It helps support my channel. In case you can't tell, if the video doesn't look better, it should because I did buy a camera. Yes. I talked about this in a previous video that I needed a new camera, which is how I was able to use my phone. But yeah, I finally did do it. And those of you who donated towards that, thank you so much. I put every penny towards this camera and I will say I paid the majority. So mainly you helped with the tax, but I am grateful. And so going forward, any donations, tips, whatever you want to call it, will go towards helping me buy more books, ebooks, of course, and coffee, tea, all that good stuff. Every penny you give me, like I said, goes towards those things. So I am grateful. And as I said, the link is always below. You can always support my channel. So I think that is all for this video. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book. Unplug as much as possible. Be kind to all kind. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.